Eat like a king who's on a budget. 3 tasty options, fries, drink, and nuggets. All for $5. Wait, that can't be right. Just confirm that that's the real price. BK, have it your way.
What's up, Brainiacs? Welcome into another live stream on Sunday for the Fantasy Brains podcast. Got some special guests with me today. We got Gabe in here, as always. He's been here the last couple weeks, but Charlie was not able to make it today. So we have our good friend Slapdawg over here from the Leather Brain side. Excited to talk about some fantasy football today, as we are about an hour away from kickoff of these 1 o'clock Eastern games. So, gentlemen, week 6 NFL. How are we feeling? Already 5 weeks into the season.
I'm feeling good. And I'm excited to be here. I don't get to talk fantasy as much on the other side of the fence, so excited to talk fantasy today with you, gentlemen.
Yeah, always excited. Loving the NFL season. I think things have really kind of leveled at this point. Like, good teams are good, bad teams are bad. It's been fun and lots to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just get right into it, because there's so much stuff that we can already talk about today. So we already got a question coming in. So before we even start, Metcalf, Diggs, or ETN, and let's just assume this is going to be a full PPR format. If Bob can throw that in there, that might help a little bit. These are 3 solid players. You got Metcalf going up against the Browns, Diggs going up in New Orleans, and ETN against the Seahawks. I'm going to go with Stephon Diggs here. Oh, but ETN. I'm going to go with
It's your start of the week, bro.
Diggs. I'm going with Stephon Diggs,
Okay.
because as long as it's PPR, if it's PPR, I'll go with Stephon Diggs. He had a really good game last week. He's looking healthier each week. I think ETN's a close second, but I like the matchup against the Saints defense here.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Saints are not great, right? And they're putting up almost 30 points to the wide receiver position on a weekly basis. So I'm also going to take Diggs here. You know, we saw a little bit of a connection last week with Drake May and him kind of come to fruition. It's going to be Diggs for me as well. But ETN gets spicy because, you know, then you're looking at, is it a floor play or a ceiling play? And that's where you kind of got to look at this, because I think Travis Etienne has a little bit safer of a floor, but I think Diggs has a little bit higher of a ceiling for you.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing between the floor and the ceiling. I like ETN this week. He has a great matchup against the Seahawks. He's playing at home. He's going to have a ton of volume. But Diggs, we saw a ton of volume as well last week. I don't know how consistent that's going to be moving forward, but I like this matchup against the Saints. My only concern is if the game starts getting a little dicey and the Patriots are up a decent bit, we might not see as much volume from Diggs. So I would caution, but I am leaning Diggs a little bit more than ETN. And Metcalf is someone that I tend to shy away from, because I think he's more of a touchdown upside guy instead of a volume guy, which always scares me.
Yeah, I think ETN is definitely a great option. He's been awesome this season, and the Jaguars have really relied on him. But I think with the upside that you have with Diggs, I think that's going to be a closer game than people think. The Saints have played it close with most teams they've played this season. The game's in New Orleans, so I like that
Which
match
is
a lot.
surprising to me, because I have the Saints as one of the worst teams in the NFL. And you know what? Rattler is not – I'm not going to sit here and say he is the future of the Saints organization, but he's not looking bad. And the Saints really in general are not looking as bad as I had initially anticipated going into the season.
Gabe, give me my flowers real quick, bro. Come on.
Hey, man, I will say, I don't know if anyone has ever cared more about Spencer Rattler being an above-average NFL quarterback than our good friend Matthew Kahan. Like, out of every player in the NFL, he's been so invested in this guy. But genuinely, Spencer Rattler is not bad and has not been that bad this season. It's too bad his situation's pretty terrible, but he's been a totally serviceable quarterback, and it's clear when a team has 1 win on the season and he's not in any conversation whatsoever of being replaced, that he's doing just fine. So I will give our good friend Matthew Kahan some flowers, where he did say that Spencer Rattler was a good guy to have this season and was going to put up a relatively decent season.
Yeah, no, I mean, we don't have to talk much about Rattler because we will get to that game, but he has looked really good to start the season. At least I'm saying really good in terms of, what his expectations were. But we got Charlie coming in, Zay Flowers on a limited snap count with a backup quarterback. Do I go Kendrick Bourne or Romeo Doubs to replace? I talked to Charlie last week. Give me Kendrick Bourne all day.
I'm not believing
in this Ravens offense with Cooper Rush. Like, I know Zays will go out there and give you 6 catches for 45 yards, but give me the upside with Kendrick Bourne where they're playing the Bucks, and this could be a shootout game.
No question. These boys are out again for San Francisco. Bourne is going to have a ton of room to actually catch some passes. And the way they use him in the offense is, for a fantasy owner, really exciting because a lot of short passes, a ton of volume. If he's catching like 9 or 10 receptions, who cares how many yards he has? Like, he's going to put up points. And that's what we saw last week. Who knows how consistent that'll be, but I like it a lot more than Romeo Doubs, where I can't really predict what's going to happen.
Why did I think Kendrick Bourne was like 24? The man is 30. What is going on here? For whatever reason, I was like, Kendrick Bourne, yeah, he's a young guy. And obviously the 49ers are depleted at every position. So, yeah, I mean, I'm taking Kendrick Bourne as well. I mean, how this 49ers team is limping along and still finding ways to win is very impressive to me. It's also frustrating as a Cardinals fan. But somebody's got to do something in that offense. And yeah, I would take Kendrick Bourne here as well.
Yeah, and he said Juwan Jennings is playing, which is true, but I mean, you're looking at probably limited snap count, and that's still the top 2 receivers, so Bourne should still be on the field for most of the game. But
you're gonna play. I mean, if you're gonna play Romeo Doubs, you're playing against a Bengals defense, right? So that the opportunity is there. The problem is it gonna be Doubs, and that's something that we have not seen throughout this entire season for the Packers. It's any given Sunday, anybody can be that player that goes off. So I think Kendrick Bourne's a safer play in my opinion.
Absolutely. Let's get on to some of these games though. Let's first start off with the Thursday game, and I'll let Slapdawg get the first run at this one. But we have the Eagles shitting the bed for the second week in a row, and they're finally starting to lose games. But on the fantasy side of things, you have Dart and Scatterbo both putting up 25 plus points against I won't even say the Eagles are a tougher defense. They've been weaker this year. You have Jalen Carter out. So I guess maybe not even that much of a tough matchup, but you still have to be impressed with what we've seen out of Dart so far.
You have to be. I mean, look, I have Jackson Dart in a dynasty league, so I will start by saying that. But I watched film on this guy going into the season, and in it, you know what really makes me mad and also makes me feel validated at the same time is when I was watching film on this guy, I was like, this is a Josh Allen light. And I was saying that in preseason. I was saying that before he ever took a snap. And now you see all these NFL analysts saying, oh, yeah, it reminds me of a little bit of Josh Allen. And I'm like, okay, I was saying that before the season even started. The thing with Dart is going into this game, he's a rookie, right? He's a rookie. This is his third start, excuse me. And this Eagles defense, while they are missing some pieces, is still notoriously a good defense. And so you have to temper your expectations when it comes to these rookie quarterbacks. For him to come out and do what he did, he looked poised. He looked like he was comfortable in the pocket as well as leaving the pocket, and he was making his reads quickly and efficiently. I was really impressed with Dart. And then Scatterbo on the other side, man, these two guys, they got crayons up their nose and they're just running around, and they have finally given the Giants something the Giants have not had in a long time, that being identity. And that's something that was really great to see in this game, alongside with the win. Anytime the Eagles lose, I get a little bit excited and happy because I love seeing Eagles fans just get riled up. But I had to start Dart this week, and I was really nervous going into this game because I was like, I don't want to do this. It wasn't something I was necessarily excited about because I was nervous about him being a rookie, him playing against the Eagles defense. He looked great. And now, in my mind, and I know that on my show, we're going to be talking about this on Monday, Brian Dable's job is secure for the rest of the year. This game right here showcased to me that I think Brian Dable has secured his job for the rest of the season. And for Giants fans, the thing that you're looking for now is, can we develop this guy? And obviously they lost Malik Neighbors, which definitely puts a hindrance in that offense to a large degree. But can we start surrounding this guy with talent and start actually making some competition happen for the Giants? Because it hasn't happened in a long time, and I think that's what I took from Thursday night's game.
It's crazy. Like, can we take a second to think about the difference? The Giants went from having 5 turnovers and losing by 2 scores to the New Orleans Saints, then coming in and doubling the score of the Eagles, winning by 17 points the week after in a short week. It makes no sense how quickly the NFL can change. And we talked about Brian Dable being like a surefire to, you just said that he has secured his job after 1 week. Like, that is so ridiculous to me, but it's true. And that's just the bottom line. Like, Scatterbo and Dart, I like what you said, Slapdawg, about they have an identity. and they are fun to watch, right? They're an exciting team, and they have 2 wins on the season because they're building something and they have something going for them, and they're starting to have an identity. And the best thing about the Giants is, besides those 2 being lunatics, they have arguably the best defensive line in all of football. So they have these things going for them where at least they're fun to watch and they're building something.
And
that's
what Giants fans, exactly. That's what Giants fans need to take away from this is you're probably going to lose some more games this year. The Giants have one of the most difficult schedules in the NFL, the most difficult schedule in the NFL. There was really low optimism for this entire team going into the season, and Dart has proven, okay, we might potentially have something here. Let's see how it develops over these next few weeks and how the rest of the season plays out. But I think you have to feel really optimistic as a Giants fan moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially on the fantasy side of things, you have Dart scrambling at a consistent basis, willing to put his body on the line. So I think in good matchups, you're willing to start Dart almost every single week. And I don't want to spend too much time on this game because we got this whole schedule of games going today. But I think also on the Eagles side of the ball, you have AJ Brown comes out with like a 14-point performance. Jalen Hurts, you're starting him every week. It's just the biggest disappointment is Saquon this year. Because they just aren't getting on the ball. He's not breaking off any of those big plays. So
it's the offensive coordinator.
I was
going to ask,
would you even consider sitting Saquon like any week? Like,
I don't think you can. I don't think you can because you with the draft capital you have invested in him, he is your RB1. And the waiver wire dependent. And if you have some other options that are appealing, maybe, but you still got to start him because the opportunity is there. And notoriously, he has been an upper echelon running back that is a producer for fantasy football. The problem in my mind is that offensive coordinator. Because you look at this team, and this is the same argument I make over on my show, is you look at what the Eagles are, there hasn't been a lot of personnel changes on this team from a player standpoint. So what is it? It's the offensive coordinator. The fact that they are struggling proves to me, okay, now if you were to take away AJ Brown and Saquon Barkley, then maybe I would understand a little bit more of these troubles, but we've seen them all play together last year and in years past, and it looks different. It doesn't look like things are clicking, and I attribute that to their offensive coordinator and the lack of scheming that they're doing properly.
And there are points in the game that we saw, right? Saquon Barkley has 8 carries in the first half. He looked, very average, but it's kind of whatever. The game was close. The Giants go up by like a score or two, and the Eagles, this is in the second half at this point, maybe third quarter, midway through third quarter. The Giants are up by at least 1 score, maybe 10 points at this point. And the Eagles, at their own 10-yard line, give Saquon a carry, they get 0 yards. Give Saquon another carry, get 0 yards. I'm like, we're down by 10 points. You just give Saquon 2 carries to get 0 yards. Like, now we've decided to bring Saquon into the game instead of throwing the football and letting him eat once they drive down the field. It just didn't make a lot of sense, some of the game management stuff. And then the Eagles are now playing behind, which we haven't seen a lot this season, and they couldn't complete the passes that they needed, and their time management was terrible. Like, it was a lot of bad things that I think people kind of brushed over, where there are some real concerns about the efficiency of this offense and them being able to actually manage games, especially when they were behind, like what we saw this past week against the Giants.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to move on here, I mean, Gannon, you have an absolutely ridiculous running back room here. I don't even know who to pick here because they're all top 10 backs this week. You can't bench CMC. I'm sorry, you just can't. And I don't think that you could. I don't even know who to bench here. It's like they're all too good. I would almost say, I guess you have to probably bench Dowdle. I mean, this is tough. This is genuinely all 4 of these guys are going to have great weeks looking at it right now.
If I was to pick, you got to pick 3. I'm going to take CMC. I'm going to take Javonte. And I am probably going to take Dowdle here. I mean,
well, if it's PPR, if it's not full PPR, I think HN, you bench him. If it's full PPR, then it's really close.
I'm going to take Dowdle. I'll take Javonte, Dowdle, and CMC as my 3 to roll with. I mean, the Cowboys are...
I'll roll with that too.
they're number 6 at the position for points against running backs. So they're averaging almost 27 points a game to the running back position. I'm going to take Dowdle. I mean, he looked phenomenal last week, and I expect that to continue. So if I had to bench anybody, I mean, the Chargers are a little bit better statistically at stopping that running back position. In fact, they're the 4th best defense in the league at stopping the running back position. I don't have a lot of faith in the Dolphins offense. And while Achane and the PPR upside is certainly there, anything can happen. I'm going to take Javonte Dowdle and CMC.
Dude, just close your eyes and spin a wheel. It does not matter. Whoever you're playing against, I feel bad. Like, what are we talking about? But I'd probably sit Dowdle just because I love Achane's receiving upside. And honestly, that might even be more of like picking his name, Devon Achane over someone like Dowdle, because they all have matchup wise, he has the toughest matchup, but again, catching passes is just so elite. So I would say sit Dowdle, but clearly after last week, like, is that even an option? Who knows?
Yeah, no, I'm completely with. I think we're all on the same side here. But let's talk about some of these games on this Sunday today. So let's just start off with the Cardinals Colts here. I don't even think we need to talk much about the Colts side because the Colts have been great this year. I think you're probably starting Pittman this week. You're starting Daniel Jones. I think you obviously are starting Jonathan Taylor. I think the Cardinals side is a little more interesting. So Slapdawg, as our resident Cardinals fan here, what are your thoughts on Marvin Harrison this week? Because his line actually went up by 4 yards with the injury to Kyler Murray. And I agree that it's looking a little bit better with him now that you have a bigger gunslinger quarterback at the helm.
Well, we know that typically your backup quarterbacks target your number 1 wide receiver just a little bit more. And that's probably due to comfortability in the offense and trying to, drive the ball down the field. My problem is this. The Cardinals are not a good team. We're not a good team. We're pretty bad. And I think Jacoby Brissett as a backup quarterback is not the end of the world. Obviously, he has experience in the league and he has played multiple games. I think if you drafted Marv where you drafted him at, the unfortunate reality is you kind of have to ride him out. And obviously that's all dependent upon, we're kind of getting at the point with the waivers where there is maybe some other options. My concern is the Colts defense is actually, they're pretty good at stopping the wide receivers. They're pretty bad at stopping the wide receivers. They're giving up 38 points a game. So that kind of brings them in top 5 as far as points allowed to that position. I think Marv to me is a play this week. And I think that Jacoby Brissett is actually going to, hopefully, fingers crossed as a Cardinals fan, target Marv a little bit more than maybe Kyler has been. But also Trey McBride's there. And we also know that when you have that easy check down from a top tight end, that makes it really easy to release the ball quickly and make that first read. So there's a little bit of hesitation there. I'm starting Marv this week, but once again, I kind of don't have a choice with the buys and everything that are this week. So that's kind of my outlook at this. You guys have anything else on that one?
Not really. I think it's pretty accurate. I think Marv's been pretty decent. Obviously like the media and whatnot.
Sure.
I think it's been like a little bit, he's been kind of a worse like NFL player than he has been fantasy player because he was able to get in the end zone that 1 week where he did poorly. But overall, I like Marv, and I think it's a good matchup. And I think he's talented. I believe in his talent, and I said on our TikTok this week to start Marv. So I got to ride with that. I think Marv has a good shot this week, and they could be playing from behind too, which means throwing the football. And considering how depleted their running back core is, they're going to have to throw the ball at some point. So
because Bam Knight is getting the start.
Yeah,
so
Bam Knight.
I think it's going to be a 3-headed backfield between DeMarcado, Bam, and I can't even remember the other gentleman's name. Michael Carter is kind of like a 3-headed back. And I'm interested to see how this plays out because DeMarcado kind of was that guy last week. Obviously, some stuff happened. But this game, we're going to lose this game. I mean, the Colts are going to win this game. The Colts are a playoff contending team. They are very fun to watch, and they have a lot of weapons and are able to utilize them. So this is a loss for the Cardinals. I've already accepted it.
Absolutely. Let's just do a quick around the horn here. No analysis, but Marv or Michael Pittman. I will take Pittman.
I would also take Pittman.
I like Marv more than Pittman this week.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that those are all pretty close, to be honest. Like those guys are very close. I think Marv could definitely have a good week just based off them playing from behind. He gets a lot of targets, gets in the end zone. So we'll see how that game turns out. But let's transition over here to another game. Dolphins, Chargers. Dolphins side, I think we feel pretty confident about what we've seen. This Dolphins team has looked a little bit better in terms of the offense. Now, obviously, you have Tyreek Hill out, so Jalen Waddle is going to be hitting your lineup pretty much automatically. Devon Achane is going to be hitting your lineup. I'm looking on the Chargers side now with Omari and Hampton out. Would you be willing to start Hassan Haskins this week in a good matchup who just let up 200 yards to Rico Dowdle? Are you going to put Haskins in that lineup this week with the injury to Hampton?
But you can, but they said Haskins is going to be like the lead back, but I do think they're going to split a decent bit. There's that.
There is that. In the Dolphins they give up quite a bit of points at the running back position. They're actually the 5th worst team at giving up that. They're averaging about 27 points a game to the running back position. So the opportunity is there. If it was Omari and Hampton, this would be a no-brainer. But I kind of lean with Gabe on that, where it's going to be a little bit more interesting, I think, than people initially. I picked him up. I have him on my bench. I'm interested to see how this timeshare goes. For me, I'm going to wait a week. I want to see, is Vidal, is he going to be more involved than we maybe think out of the gate, and you're disappointed? Maybe he's the goal line back. We're going to see how this plays out. I am taking the approach of I'm going to wait a week before I start him, but the matchup is there.
It's tough because I figured I did the similar thing. I picked up Haskins and I'm like, okay, I picked him up for a reason. Like he's potentially starting, but the guy that I'm between benching and for is Derrick Henry. And I'm like, oh, I just have to do it, right? Like I have to bench Derrick Henry. He's been terrible. But then I look at him like, am I really going to start Hassan Haskins over Derrick Henry? Like mentally, it's a really difficult choice because of the name. But on paper, it's like Henry has a terrible matchup. He's been bad over and over again. That often sucks. And
the Rams are very good at stopping the run.
Yeah,
I mean they're one of they're top 3 in the league at not allowing points to the running back position. I'd almost take that dart throw, as crazy as it sounds, and I get it because that name value is there. But I'd almost start Haskins over Derrick Henry, which is crazy to say here in week 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, but with how bad this Ravens offense has been, you can't even hate putting them on the bench at this point. Let's get on to another interesting matchup in terms of fantasy this week. So we have the Titans at the Raiders. And I think this is a good week for both teams to kind of get on track. We saw the Titans finally have a little bit of a breakout last week. And so I have Calvin Ridley as one of my starts of the week. We saw him have 10 targets last week, 131 yards on 5 catches. And now you get this Raiders team who has really struggled against the pass. I love Calvin Ridley this week. I think that, it's taken some time for Cam Ward to really get this offense going. We finally saw them connect on a few deep balls this week. And to be truly honest, with how bad this Titans team has been, I don't know why they haven't taken more shots. It seems like that they faced they were playing such conservative football early on. And maybe that's part of the reason, the fact that you have some tough matchups like Houston and Denver in those first few weeks where you have tough secondaries. But I think Ridley is a really good candidate this week to go for another, 9 to 10 targets, and maybe he catches 6 to 7 passes for 70 to 80 yards, and maybe he gets in the end zone this week. And I think, when you look at the side of the ball, it could be good this week.
No, I think Ridley is a start this week just because of the matchup and the Raiders. Yeah, I like looking at the numbers. The Raiders defense is one of the worst at the wide receiver position. They're giving up almost 40 points a week to the wide receiver position. Mm-hmm. This is an opportunity. And I agree with you completely. I think this game is a get right game for maybe both teams because they're both bad teams and they're both struggling and they need to find something. I don't think Cam Ward is the problem. I really don't. No. I have watched Cam Ward play these last few weeks. I think it's just the talent around him and the fact that maybe the velocity on the ball is maybe a little too much. But I'm starting Ridley this week. I think it's a great matchup, and I think the opportunity is there to get some fantasy points.
I think that's well put. For the Raiders side of the ball, I mean, it's a similar story. It's tough to really trust any of these Raiders receivers. Saw Trey Tucker go for a huge game. We wanted to see Brock Bowers do. I was dealing with a knee injury, and then Jacoby Myers has been pretty uneventful. So hopefully one of these guys can really start to stand out. But we're gonna need to see something from Geno, and then Genty's a must start, and he's starting to find his stride a bit now. He's had some good games, 2 good games in a row. So
yeah, you're starting Genty
kind of the guy.
I mean, if you're not, you're making a mistake because the Titans defense is allowing a lot of points to that running back position.
Yeah, and And I was going to say, before we even get on to the Raiders side, we got a question coming on the Instagram side here from my good friend Will Newman. Should I start Jalen Warren or Kenneth Walker this week? And I'm going to even just throw Ridley in there because I know he can start Ridley. But I told him I'm taking Calvin Ridley this week over both those guys in a full PPR format. I don't love the matchup for either Walker or Warren this week. And I'm going to take Ridley on that one.
Yeah, I think I would do the same. I'm trying to pull up the Steelers defense is good, right? We know that. The Browns defense is good, and which is probably the only thing that we can say about the Browns as far as good at all. It's their defense, and from statistically looking at it, they're actually one of the best defenses at stopping the running back position. So Jalen Warren, if you have to start him, you got to start him. But if you have other options, I'm certainly entertaining that because Warren to me is maybe we throw him on the bench this week and we let somebody else do the heavy lifting. And so then you have Kenneth Walker against the Jaguars. Jaguars are, I would rather start him over Jalen Warren. So, but if you have Calvin Ridley, I would be starting Calvin Ridley over those two as well.
I agree. Unless you can confidently tell me that Kenneth Walker is going to get red zone touches, I lean towards Ridley as well. And I say that almost sarcastically because you can't. Like at this point, it's been Charbonnet who gets all those touches, which doesn't make any sense to me, but it's just the way it is. So until I can see Kenneth Walker actually get some red zone touches, he's going to have to be a tough guy to start week to week where it's more matchup dependent than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I just like Ridley. I think it's a good matchup. The touches.
The
are
matchup is
there,
what
hopefully.
I like.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I think Ridley is the move. But real quick before we move off this Raiders game, thoughts on starting Jacoby Myers this week? I think that this could finally be his week where he gives you 8 catches for 84 yards and maybe he gets in the end zone.
I'm fine starting him between injuries and bye weeks. I think if you own Jacoby Myers, he's probably that guy who's on the fringe of being like your flex player, like wavering someone else. And I would lean towards like sticking out with Myers and his talent instead of trying to find like a flyer with a guy who's not as talented in a good matchup.
Here's my concern with starting Meyer is Trey Tucker. And because I think one of these two guys is going to eat. I don't think they're both going to, from a fantasy perspective, produce at a high level, but I think the opportunity for one of them is there. Trey Tucker's on the field a lot. I mean, he is a bona fide starter for the Raiders, and the opportunity is there. And that's not to discredit Meyer, because I do think Meyer is the wide receiver one in this group, but if that Titans defense is going to put a focus on trying to stop him, Trey Tucker also comes into play.
Absolutely. I think both could be okay options this week if you really need it. But let's move on to some of our other matchups. We have the Patriots heading over to New Orleans to play in the Dome. I think this is going to be an very, very interesting game. You have Drake May coming off the win Sunday night. Didn't put up a great fantasy score there. But in this game, you have a lot of, I would say, flex-worthy options with Olave and Kamara and Juwan Johnson, Hunter Henry, Diggs, Ramondre. Do any of these guys stand out specifically to either of you in terms of having a really good week just based off the matchup we have here?
Olave is interesting to me, and the reason being is the matchup. The Patriots allow their, I would say, on the fringe of the top 10 as far as allowing points to the wide receiver position. And I expect the Patriots to win this game. So with that in mind, we'll see how things play out. This game, I could see really going either way, but I do expect the Patriots to win. With that being said, I think they are going to have to air the ball out, and Olave is interesting. So, that for the Saints, Olave I like. And then on the other side, Diggs is someone that is also interesting. Just because I still believe in the talent that is Diggs, and we got to see it come to fruition last week. And he is a wide receiver one for Drake May, and that really up until last week was not anything to write home about, but he looked good last week. And so those two are the guys that I would be interested in starting in maybe a flex worthy position, or you need to start them because of buys, but that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I like Ramondre. It just seems like Vrabel is he's going with Ramondre Stevenson. And as much as I like Trayvon Henderson, and I've talked about him a ton, both on the lives and on Fantasy Brains TikTok, it's just he hasn't seen the snap share and the volume that we need to see. But Olave is someone who has reminded me kind of a lot of Ted McMillan this season. I think they've had very comparable seasons because he's having a ton of receptions and targets, but the yardage just isn't there and the touchdown volume isn't there. And that makes sense because the Saints are not a very good team. So I'm really hoping that this is a game that you could see Olave actually get in the end zone with the 6 receptions that he's been getting, because we saw 2 weeks ago he had like 3 receptions and a touchdown. And you're like, ugh, this is the 1 week he doesn't have like 7 receptions, So I think if we can finally see a week with Olave, which I think they have a chance this week to get in the end zone, he could actually have like a nice breakout performance because he gets the volume that I like.
No, the volume is there. I mean, you're talking, aside from 2 weeks ago, 11 targets, 14, 10, 13, 6. Like, the volume is there. It's just that touchdowns, we've only seen 1 this season so far.
Yeah, that's the scary part. I think that's why I'm saying there's a lot of flex-worthy plays in this game. I think Diggs is going to be my favorite, just seeing how much more dominant he is over anyone else on this Patriots offense. I think Hunter Henry is a very interesting play, a guy who's honestly been very underrated his entire career, never really played with good quarterback play, and he's put together a couple of good games this year. I think he's a huge end zone target for this Patriots team, so I could see Henry going for 4 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown today against this poor Saints defense. Let's talk about this Cowboys-Panthers game, because this is one of my favorite games. It's 2 offenses, 2 bad defenses, and 2 offenses that could be very solid this week. So you have a very expected Ted McMillan breakout this week. And we talked to Ted McMillan last week about how last week was a good opportunity for his breakout against the Dolphins. So, Gabe, I'm going to let you have the floor on this one because I know Ted McMillan is your start of the week. What are your expectations for McMillan? And I will say there are reports that this game could be a rainy game, that weather could be a factor in this one.
Okay, my first thing I'm going to mention, it doesn't really have anything to do with what might actually happen on the field. I just get a little bit nervous, and it happened last week with Ted. When everyone starts to have the same exact opinion about something, I almost feel like it doesn't come true. It's like it's too good to be true. And I'm starting to get that feeling like Ted went from, good matchup, he's going to break out, to like everyone is expecting him to break out this game. And that's not really how the NFL works. So I'm definitely saying that you have to start Ted this week. And I do think he could have a great game. But would I be surprised if Bryce Young and the Panthers offense doesn't look good? Like, no. How could you be surprised about that? And clearly they did something well last week where Rico Dowdle had like 230 total yards. You know what I mean? So Ted is a must start, but let's temper expectations. When I say he's going to break out, let's hope he has like 7 receptions for near 100 yards and a touchdown. It's really that touchdown volume that would be more exciting for me. But clearly they found something on the ground last week with Rico Dowdle, and they're probably going to stick with that against the poor Dallas defense. And on the Dallas side, there's not much to talk about. You start everyone you can for Dallas in this matchup. They are a fantastic fantasy team. Dak and Javonte are great. Ferguson has been the best tight end with an unbelievable volume. And then guys like Pickens, we saw Fournette last week, this guy who came out of nowhere. You start all those guys.
The interesting thing with this is the Cowboys defense statistically actually is the Panthers defense is statistically very good at shutting down wide receivers. Yeah, I mean, they're the second best defense as far as not allowing points to that wide receiver position at 23. So, and I'm not saying don't start George Pickens, but it is something that I just want to bring up. I agree with you on Ted. The rainy game aside, I expect the Cowboys to win this game because the Panthers have just been bad, but it would not surprise me if the Panthers won this game. And statistically, the Cowboys defense is the worst defense in the league at giving points to the wide receiver position. So Ted is a must start for me this week. If you have other, like if you had to choose between Pickens or Ted, which one are you choosing to start this week?
Ted McMillan. It's more volume. I don't care as much for the big play upside when I think Ted could give you that as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely mixed between the two. The rainy conditions do concern me a little bit. And here's the thing, because Gabe brought this up about kind of the public perception of what's going to happen in this game. And I get this similar feeling about a guy like Rico Dowdle here. And so I love Rico Dowdle, but it's like everyone's hyping him up this week. It's like the revenge game. And so in my eyes, it's, if I'm the Cowboys, I'm doing everything possible to stop the run, and I'm going to make Bryce Young throw the ball. So I think we could see a situation here. And I'm not saying Dowdle is going to perform poorly. Maybe he goes out and he gets you a touchdown. He still gets you 4 to 5 receptions. But I really do think that the Panthers win this game. It's going to be behind a Bryce Young multiple touchdown performance because I think they're going to make him throw the ball. We talked about how the Cowboys are the worst against receivers. I think this is a Bryce Young game if they are going to take this one home. And this is a must-win game, honestly, for both teams, because if you lose this game on either side, you pretty much are almost packing it in for the season in my eyes, even though, we all know Panthers probably with the Cowboys too are not contenders, but losing with this game is going to be big for either side.
And the question you really have to ask yourself is, can Bryce Young do it? And that's where I have concerns because I agree with you. And also, looking at the numbers, Cowboys defense against the running back is still a very juicy matchup. Like it's there. And so Rico Dowdle, I think, is still certainly in play. But if you're the Cowboys, I agree. I think that's where you need to put your focus, especially after watching Dowdle last week. You really need to stop that run game and force Bryce Young to throw the ball and force him to make errors. And that's where I think the Cowboys could win this game, especially if it's raining. But that's just my 2 cents on the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a very interesting match, and we'll see how much weather plays into this one. But let's talk about another, in my opinion, juicy matchup, which is the Seahawks at the Jaguars. Two very surprisingly good teams here. You have the Seahawks sitting here at 3-2, and they took the Bucs down to the wire last week, 38-35. Sam Darnold looks unbelievably good this year. And Trevor Lawrence comes off a pretty solid Monday night performance, gets the win against the Chiefs on primetime. So both teams are looking good for this season. I have ETN here as one of my starts of the week. Let's talk about Brian Thomas this week. You have Devon Witherspoon injured, Tariq Woolen injured, and I believe Julian Love, their safety, injured. So is this the week where Brian Thomas gives you, let's just say 20 points? I don't know if it is because I feel like they're going to be relying on the run game a little bit more.
I think that's where they should focus at because Travis Etienne has looked great this year. And, I hate both these teams. I don't like the Jaguars. I have been very vocal about that on all season long and prior to this season. I don't like the Jaguars. And for me, it comes down to Trevor Lawrence. I've seen semblances of success with him, but they're winning games that in my mind they shouldn't be winning. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was a little skip and trip away from losing the game last week against the Chiefs, and he ended up getting in the end zone somehow. I've seen Trevor Lawrence miss the broadside of a barn when it comes to hitting his receivers in stride. And I'm like, what is going on here? I've given this guy so many excuses every single year about he's had coach turnovers almost every single year of his career. I get it. And those are the excuses that really, in large, the entire NFL community has made for Trevor Lawrence throughout his entire career. I'm done making the excuses. You went and drafted Travis Hunter. You gave up a lot of draft capital for him. We got to see a sweet catch from him last week, but this offense really seems to me to flow through Travis Etienne. Like that's really where this offense is finding its rhythm. I'm skeptical. And I was skeptical about Brian Thomas Jr. going into the season. And it really has come to fruition through 5 weeks about not performing at the level in which a lot of people expected him to. This is a game, as you mentioned, where all those defenders are out. So this could be. But would I be willing to hedge my bets on it? Probably not. The unfortunate reality is most people are starting Brian Thomas Jr. because of where they drafted him at, and I think there is a valid argument based on all the missing pieces on the Seahawks side of the ball.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Like, I look at the Jaguars team, and I think Trevor Lawrence had a decent game, and they won this game against the Chiefs. And then I think about, okay, who got the volume in this game? Who caught a bunch of passes? And then you sit back and you're like, well, no one really did. No one had a really good fantasy week. So then
that's every week for them.
Exactly. Where is the volume coming from? I don't understand.
I don't either.
If they can keep winning and we're like, oh, Trevor Lawrence had another decent game, but none of their fantasy wide receivers are startable. Like, what is the discrepancy here that I'm missing? And that's what we're seeing week in and week out. Because I'm like, okay, Brendan Strange is out on IR with the hip injury. So Brian Thomas is a good shout. Is our second guy, Travis Hunter? He gets like 4 or 5 targets a
4,
game.
yeah,
That's like
yeah.
nothing. And then we're talking about the Amy Brown. Like, I don't know. So I would say there is some merit in starting Thomas this week and hoping that he's finally going to find his stride, because like somebody has to, you would argue, but it's tough.
Would you start
like,
Brian Thomas Jr. or Chris Olave this week?
I would rather have Chris Olave this week because I like his volume a lot more.
Yeah, so do I.
I'll take BTJ here, and I love Olave, but here's the thing. This is my thing with Brian Thomas. There are a couple positives to look at with this situation. Obviously, I love Brian Thomas. He's been very disappointing this year. He had that wrist injury that's still going to nag him a little bit every week. I do believe that will limit him for majority of the season, and this since week 1 or 2 has kind of been my expectation. But I think if you look on the positive side with Brian Thomas is that you have 4 weeks of the season where he's given you at least 9.5 points. And obviously that's not great, but at least he's not giving you a dud in your lineup. He's giving you a minimum of 6 targets every single week. So I think you can at least feel confident that with starting him, he's not going to give you like a 0-point performance, which is good because you have that safety. I think on top of that, you see the long catch that he made in the clutch last week and drew that PI in the end zone. So maybe they're starting to get more on the same page. But to me, the biggest disappointment about Thomas is the fact that last year he was getting screen passes. Last year he was getting go balls, and it just doesn't seem like they're taking those chances with him this year. And I don't really understand why. And that's to me why he's been more disappointing, because you have maybe those 3 to 4 opportunities that he was getting last year, and now they're not giving him those. And I don't really know.
There's
why.
2 reasons. One, Liam Cohen. So they have a new offense. They have a new scheme that they want to do alongside with Trevor Lawrence was not the person that produced the production of Brian Thomas Jr.
But that has nothing to do with the route tree.
Sure, but go watch Brian Thomas's route tree in college. It was go balls.
That's different. That's different. Because they had neighbors to run some of those other routes.
Sure.
The LSU offense is completely different. But if you look at Brian Thomas and what he did last year, he was productive on screen passes. He was great on go balls. So I don't think that has anything to do with the quarterback that's throwing to him. It has to do with the fact that he's not getting those routes anymore.
I think it's because Trevor Lawrence can't throw the ball. I watched him 2 weeks ago miss like 3 throws in a row that his wide receiver had the D-back beat. And I'm like, what is this? And I don't want to really say it's all Trevor Lawrence's fault. I do think the scheme is different. And what Liam Cohen is trying to do in this offense is a little bit different than what they were trying to do last year. And that I think that also plays into why you're not seeing the production that you want out of Brian Thomas Jr. If any week is a week to do it, I'm really hoping this week is the week for BTJ. But there are other options that I would consider depending upon who you have on your bench.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would you rather start Marv or BTJ this week? And that's probably not an option for most people, but I'm gonna pitch it to you guys.
I'd rather start Marv this week.
I'll take BTJ, but it's pretty close.
Okay.
Let's move on here though. We got a question that just came in. Travion Henderson or Alvin Kamara, they are playing each other. I'm gonna take Kamara. I just don't trust the workload that Henderson has right now.
You concerned about Kendre Miller and his workload in this offense?
I think he's going to get touches, but Kamara has the reception upside. So assuming it's PPR, I just think you can rely on him getting points. He could get in the end zone today. Patriots defense is very on and off. I would just take Kamara with the higher opportunity rate.
Yeah, same. It's all about opportunity. We'll see if they can actually get into the end zone. That's been kind of holding him back. And Miller has gotten more carries last 2 games, but we kind of, at least I did expect that to happen because Kamara was one of the most inefficient running backs in the league last season. So it makes sense. He needs to catch some passes and hopefully score a touchdown. But I have him more than Henderson.
I think the match, if Henderson was on the field 80% of the time, it's a pretty easy no-brainer for me for Henderson.
Yeah,
but
of course.
He's just not. And the matchup would say Henderson, but the volume that Henderson's getting is why I would also take Kamara there.
Yep, absolutely. And we had a question come on Instagram. But real quick, how do we feel about Deebo Samuel this week? Is he a start? I think absolutely.
Love Deebo Samuel.
You got to start him. You got to start him.
And the Bears, we're talking about the Bears secondary here. Like, even if Kyler Gordon's back, they create a lot of chaos forcing turnovers, but they do allow big plays. So Deebo can definitely have one of those big plays, especially on one of those short catches that he runs a lot of yards after the catch. I think is a good shout for Deebo this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you got to start Debo. He's given you 18 plus in 4 out of 5 weeks. Terry McLaurin's out. That could be a good game on Monday night. We got your boy Fletch coming in. Appreciate you, my guy, for joining us today. But he's got, in a PPR league, need to Pollard, Chase Brown, and Tucker Kraft. I would say none of these options are great. I'm gonna go with Tony Pollard and Tucker Kraft. Just because I like the matchup a little bit more for Tony Pollard. Now, I do have more hope for Chase Brown this season. Now with Joe Flacco at the helm, hopefully the Bengals offense is a little bit better, but they draw a terrible matchup going into Green Bay this week. So I'm going to take the matchup for Pollard and the matchup for Tucker Kraft this week.
Tucker Kraft is the start of the week for me. I get it. Joe Flacco is new to the system. I think that almost validates that argument more because you have that tight end, that secure tight end. And the Bengals are giving away. They are the worst team in the NFL as far as giving points to the tight end position. Tucker Kraft has looked great this entire season. So I'm going to take Tucker Kraft this week, and I'm also going to take Pollard for that matchup. And Chase Brown, the Packers defense is pretty good at stopping the running back position. I expect Chase Brown to have a better performance than he has with Jake Browning in these last few weeks because I do believe Joe Flacco is a better quarterback. But given the options that we got, I'm going to take Pollard and Kraft.
Unfortunately, I'm going to say the same because I say unfortunately because if you asked me this question 6 weeks ago, if I had to choose between Tony Pollard and Chase Brown, I would have been like laughing in your face because Chase Brown I was the highest on Chase Brown out of any player in the entire offseason. So this really hurts. But yeah, it's Pollard and Kraft this week.
Yeah, we got another question flowing in. So I think we all agreed on that one. But start one, full PPR, Kendrick Bourne, T. Higgins, or Romeo Dobbs. Higgins is one of my sits of the week against this Green Bay defense. I'm going to go with Kendrick Bourne. I loved what we saw out of him last week. He's got that connection with Mac Jones. Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle are still going to be out this week, and he draws a juicy matchup against the Bucs where there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. So while I like Dobbs a lot, or Dobbs, however you pronounce it, I just don't know if the Packers are going to be throwing much in this game, so I'll take Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, I'm going to take Kendrick Bourne as well. I mean, the Packers defense is pretty middle of the pack at stopping the wide receiver position. Would not surprise me if T gets a touchdown. This is kind of one of those teams where we don't know what it looks like with Joe Flacco at the helm, assuming this is T. Higgins and not Jaden Higgins. I'm going to say I would bench Higgins because I don't know what this looks like. And would it surprise me if he gets a touchdown? No, but would it surprise me if he didn't? Also, no. Romeo Dobbs, as we kind of covered a little bit earlier, you don't know on any given week which Packers wide receiver is going to be the wide receiver for this game, and that's really how I look at the Packers in general. Aside from Tucker Kraft, he has been very usable as a tight end. Give me Kendrick Bourne.
I'm taking Bourne as well. I think our two colleagues shared it pretty well. I don't have too much to add. I think Bourne's the play here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, watch out for Matthew Golden in that game because Packers coming off a bye week, I think they're going to get him a little bit more involved, and this could be his breakout week. So watch out for that one. But before we end off this stream, we got a couple minutes here till kickoff. Let's talk about some of these primetime games. Sunday Night Football, we got Lions-Chiefs. Really good matchup here. This is the Chiefs last week without having Rashee Rice back. The Lions have been great ever since that week 1 loss against the Packers. My biggest question, because I think we can all agree, you're starting Mahomes this week. You're starting Goff based off how these two guys have played. You're starting St. Brown. You're starting Laporta. You're starting, Gibbs, Worthy, most likely. There are two players I want to talk about. First one, are you going to start David Montgomery this week?
No. I'm not starting David Montgomery this week. I like that Chiefs running defense is pretty good. They have a pretty decent interior line. And I don't think it's going to be a very positive game script for Montgomery. I think this game's going to be pretty close throughout. I don't know if he's going to get a ton of volume. And it's tough because I love Jahmyr Gibbs. So the problem is with Monty, he's been very good this season, but a lot of that comes from big rushes and touchdowns. And I could see this game being a little bit lower scoring for the Lions than what we've seen in previous weeks, where I don't love that 12 carry volume for Montgomery this week, where he might get one reception and you need to hope he gets a touchdown or a big carry.
My only thing, would you rather start David Montgomery or Kendrick Bourne?
Bourne.
Kendrick Bourne. It's receiving volume.
The volume, which is crazy. I mean, you're talking. He's seeing a sub. Aside from the week where they beat the crap out of the Bengals last week, you're seeing a sub 40 sub 40% usage of David Montgomery on the field. You're hovering right around that mid 30s, high 30s range. But the volume is there for as far as like what he's doing as an RB is there. Like his volume, I mean, 11 carries, 12 carries, 11 carries. Like he's getting the touches, but a lot of it is goal line work. And I kind of agree with you, Gabe. I think that you got to temper your expectations because this game could be really interesting. The last time I looked, Vegas line was that they had the Chiefs winning this game. I had the Lions winning this game, but I think it's going to be really close. And so you're really just banking on, is he going to get, are they going to have a catch that goes down at the 5-yard line and they throw David Montgomery in to get that goal line touchdown?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree with you guys. I mean, this could be a high-scoring game. Lions could be losing in this game, and I just don't think you can trust Montgomery in some of these closer matchups. But let's talk about one more player real quick. Jamison Williams. Is this the week you start him? I think the matchup is good because it could be high-scoring. Chiefs do play a lot of too high safety, and so because of that, I'm going to bench him this week.
And this is me this is not data driven. This is Slapdawg thought process. I think the Chiefs are going to go in this game with the intentions of two things: try and shut down Amon-Ra St. Brown and try and stop the run game. And I think if they succeed in both those areas, I think there's an opportunity for JMO. I'm nervous and I have to start him this week, but that's kind of my perception towards it. The matchup is not great. The Chiefs defense is really great at shutting down the wide receiver for fantasy football. But is it going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown? Is it going to be Sam Laporta? Is it going to be JMO? And I think there is an opportunity for JMO. Would not surprise me if he gets a touchdown in this game. I'm starting him. That's kind of my thought on it. That might be outlandish, but that's kind of my take on this one.
Honestly, I think it's a pretty well put take. The problem is that JMO just hasn't done anything.
Sure.
And you're looking at there's different levels of guys, and we talk about guys being like boom or bust. This is the epitome of boom or bust.
Yeah.
He either catches 2 receptions for 70 yards and a touchdown, or does literally nothing. And it's kind of surprising to me because last season, especially towards the end, the Lions used him really well as this gadget guy who got more touches, scored more touchdowns, would get some carries out of the backfield. And they signed him to an extension. They paid him a crap load of money for him to literally just be a decoy on the field to look pretty and not play football. So I don't really understand why they're not using him at all. But
Ben Johnson leaving, perhaps.
But them signing him and him being on the field, you would have to assume at some point he's going to get more volume and do some of those big things that he's capable of doing.
He's on the field. There's no question. I mean, he is on the field. When their offense is on the field, JMO, more often than not, unless they're running a heavy package, is on the field as their wide receiver too. So it's not for lack of him not being on the field. It's just exactly. those deep balls that they haven't really.
Yeah, and it's also, don't forget, there is always the threat of him being on the field, and I think that's part of it. But last thing before we end off this live stream, let's talk about the Bears Commanders matchup. Are we starting DJ Moore, who has been terrible this year? But this looks like a matchup where there could be a lot of scoring, could be a lot of throwing on the Bears side of the field. And DJ Moore, just 2 years ago, put up 50 points against the Commanders on Thursday night. So are we willing to start him fresh off this bye week, where maybe the Bears are going to get him a little bit more involved, seeing that, it can't just be the Romo Dunze show all year?
I think you kind of hinted at it, Kahan. I almost want to flip this question on you, because the way you worded the question made it feel like, you have this inclination about Moore this week, where I think I'm in agreement with you, but can you expand a little bit on, I think you believe that DJ Moore is going to have a decent game this week?
I think I have belief in the fact that DJ Moore is a good player, and I think the Bears have not been using him to his full skill set. I think we've seen a lot of issues where it's almost similar to Brian Thomas in he's not getting any good routes. They're giving Rome all the good routes, and I'm not opposed that Rome's look good, but I think the thing that I've been upset with the Bears is not getting DJ Moore the ball in space. Put him on a drag route, put him on it, give him a screen pass, let him make plays like he's done in these past few years. And I think that coming out of the bye week, that's something that we could see where, if you're looking at ways to improve this offense, how can we get DJ Moore involved? And I think Monday night is a really good opportunity for him to shine under the lights. So I would put him in your starting lineup this week. But I do think he'll be good.
I'm scared. I'm scared to start DJ Moore this week, and I have DJ Moore. And I would you rather start DJ Moore or Jamison Williams?
I'll take DJ Moore.
Okay.
I would take DJ Moore as well.
And then we got one last question coming in from Jake Bertler, who I am playing this week in fantasy, so I'm not going to answer this one. But you guys like Pitts or Downs more this week?
I like Josh Downs.
Is this Kyle Pitts?
Yeah.
Mhm.
What other Pitts?
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Yeah, I'm gonna take Downs as well. I mean, listen, gross. Yeah, give me Downs. I mean, the Bills are actually really great at stopping the tight end position statistically, and Kyle Pitts is doing a little bit better maybe than he has over the last few years. I'm gonna take Joshua Downs. I mean, I think that Daniel Jones is looking great, and Downs is doing well too. So, Pitts is, like I said, he's doing okay. But I would take Downs over Pitts.
Downs hasn't had a lot of big receptions, but he's starting to find his stride. I think that's notable. He's starting to catch the ball more. We need to see him get some more yards, but I think he's getting a little bit more comfortable with Daniel Jones, and he has some upside this week.
Absolutely. And this is going to cap off this live stream. Week 6 is upon us. We got 4 minutes till kickoff. So hopefully you all enjoyed and took our advice on these start-sit questions. But make sure to tune in to the Leather Brains episode coming tomorrow with Slapdawg and his team talking about all these week 6 games. And then make sure to join us next week on Sunday, same time as always, noon Eastern, for some analysis on the week 7 fantasy football games. Enjoy your football Sundays. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.